from your grave.
All right, it's time for the review videos. Usually we like to mix it up, but today we got a trifecta of crime. We're getting down and dirty. I just want to give a little warning to any of you lightweights out there. You might not be able to handle this. So if you can't, turn it off. Also, I don't think that I spoil things, but maybe I do. So, spoiler alert. And go. First, we got The Gang Girls by Carson Bingham. This is Monarch Books, 1963, and the cover art is by Tom Miller. Look at that wonderful cover art. Carson Bingham is actually Bruce Bingham Cassidy. He was born in Los Angeles in 1920 and died in 2005. He went under multiple pseudonyms including Mary Ann Drew, my favorite, Robert Faraday, Annie Laurie McAllister, Annie Laurie McMurdy, and Colin Stephenson. He wrote YA books in the 60s and some Flash Gordon in the 70s. He wrote the novelization to the movie Gorgo in 1960. And it looks like he wrote a bunch of crime and mystery and some how-to guides. Look at that. Alright, the basic premise: Val and her drunken mother have moved from Ohio to Brooklyn to change their life. Val takes a job at a diner, and one night after work, she gets jumped by 6 girls from the gang, the Panther Debs. While getting her ass beat, a handsome stranger shows up named Troy, who stops the fight. Val is totally smitten. Val signs up for the gang. Sex, drugs, violence, and crime are what await Val. She must decide if this is indeed the life that she wants. So, like other juvenile delinquent books of this time, this thing is coarse and raw, with the absolute hopeless realities of characters who don't have much to live for. In fact, this may be the hardest of the juvenile delinquent books I have ever read. Let's start with Val's mom. She used to be a normal Ohio housewife. Her husband left her. She starts drinking and she starts banging every dude in their small town. Eventually they get pushed on out. She decides to take Val to Brooklyn for a new start. And that fresh start is becoming a prostitute. She is constantly obliterated. She is a raving alcoholic. And true to alcoholic form, she goes from confessing her undying love to her daughter Val to completely hating on her in the same sentence. Val's mom is covered in bruises from John's beating her, but then she has no problem turning around and putting the violence right back onto her daughter and smacking her one. The book refers to her as a blousy whore. Val is the archetypical poor good girl. She works her crappy diner job to help pay for her and her mom's apartment while her mom's in there getting wasted. She's been in New York City for a year. She has 0 friends, and she has almost completely lost all hope. One night after work, she gets jumped by the 6 gang girls. In comes handsome-ass Troy to stop the girls. She is immediately smitten. The gang girls, they don't appreciate the way that their last altercation ended, so they come back for more. And now, knowing that Troy is out there, the love of her life, it gives her the courage to fight back. She throws down with the Panther Debs. They're impressed with her viciousness and invite her to come join the gang. And here is what strikes me the most about this book. The author does such a wonderful job as showing Val to become so completely hopeless that when there's this one little shred of hope given to her, that she's willing to join this street gang to give her some kind of meaning. And this is probably pretty accurate to how youth get involved in gangs in the first place. Youth. Did I sound like an old man there? I sure did. All right, so that's sweet. That's nice. We're talking literature here, people. But enough about character motive accuracy and backstory. How about some sleazy grime? That's what we're here for. So to join the gang, Val must knife fight Ada, the current leader of the Panther Debs. After that, she has to strip naked for a gauntlet of metal belt spankings. Then they head upstairs to where the male Panthers are. She gets to meet the leader, who's going to tell her who in the gang she has to fuck to get in the gang. Spoiler alert, it's fucking Troy. Troy is the leader of the gang, and guess who he picks? Right here, sweetie. He picks himself. So Val is thrilled. She's been chosen. Who's not thrilled is Ada, because she was Troy's girlfriend. And now Ada is really not a fan of Val, and she threatens her by telling her things that she's gonna stab her in her pretty boobs. Their words, not mine. Val's not street tough, dude. She's from Ohio. She's in Brooklyn. She's worried about this. She confides in Troy, who romantically tells her, "You're my gash," and no one says not. Gash. Speaking of fun vocabulary, check out this slang. The glooned Maria, Peanut snorted. What a dumb ginch. If only she lambed. She sat there like a statue, begging the fuzz to take her. The 1950s gang vernacular is very poetic and flows like this throughout the entire book. This book is a trash-filled dumpster of depravity. Troy goes from being completely loving to being a completely abusive prick in a matter of hours. But Val, she's in love, so she turns a blind black eye. Ada and Val constantly fight over Troy in this book. At one point, Val smokes some weed. She gets ridiculously high and tells the other girls, "Hey, you go get that bitch Ada and bring her down here now." She proceeds to grab Ada by the fucking hair and smashes her head into the concrete over and over and over. We have a serious character arc here of Val. She went from timid, innocent diner Val getting verbally abused by her mother to smashing in the head of the leader of the Panther Debs. So even though I built up the Troy, Ada, Val trifecta, this isn't all about relationships. There is lots of gang stuff. They heist cars, they rob local businesses, they rumble with another juvenile delinquent gang called the Yellow Dogs, which, come on, why would you name your gang Yellow anything? There are power plays and double crosses, there's drinking and drugs, orgies, knife fights, hazing, tough talking, bitterness, rape, murder! It's just a shot away! There's a social worker named Girly trying to salvage some of these kids' lives. He obviously picks Val as worthy of saving. Val will go from hating him to throwing herself at him. Likewise, Girly, his fucking name is Girly. It didn't look funny in print, but now that I'm saying it. Girly goes from complete soft sympathy to ice hard, cold indifference. Girly even gets in on the violent action and fistfights with some of the guys of the gang. This book moves so fast, and it's not only incredibly entertaining, but it's articulate and touching. I was taken by complete surprise how beautiful this book actually was. I usually steer clear of books with real human emotion and substance. I don't want none of that in my books, but this knocked it out of the park. I actually felt things here. This was tough and violent and dirty sewer streets of New York, 1950s street gang, fucking knife fights. People are terrible in this, but also good. They're complex characters and a deep, sympathetic storyline. I mean, dude, gang girls. Thumbs, we're knife fighting. Oh, no! Still 2 thumbs up. All right, next up, we got The Face of Night by Bernard Brunner. This is published by Popular Library in 1967. I could not find much about Bernard Brunner. I found an obituary, but I'm not sure it's him, so I'm not going to share the information. So it looks like he wrote a few other books. He wrote one called The Golden Children, which was about an interracial couple fighting the bigotry of the 60s. He wrote a football book called 6 Days to Sunday, and he wrote a book called Uranium. I did find an interesting article on the Paperback Film Projector blog from 2012 about the movie Hang Up, aka Super Dude, which was based on this novel, The Face of Night. Except in the movie, they changed the race of all the characters and turned it into a blaxploitation film.
Hey, listen, man, I'm working undercover. Undercover? under the covers, man, he's a killer. He's super dude. Julie's my #1 trick girl.
God strike me dead if I ever hustled. I stole and I ran up bills I never paid, but I never hustled.
All right, the basic premise here: straight shooter, Southside Chicago detective Fred Ramsey takes on crooked cops, drug dealers, and his inner demons. Just to warn you of the world that we're about to walk in, this book contains a glossary of common used phrases and expressions by narcotics addicts at the end of the book. This was not an easy book to review, so bear with me here. We started in the south side of Chicago in 1967. It's snowing, and we're in the ghetto. Another woman has died from a heroin overdose. Someone gave her a hot shot because she's an informant. There are 2 detectives investigating the case. One is a racist asshole. The other is thoughtful and compassionate, and he is our hero, Fred Ramsey. Ramsey is worried about his other informant, Kitty. Not only is Kitty one of his pigeons, but she was also his high school crush. He's still smitten, but she's deep in the skag. It breaks his heart to see her like this. But he has to catch these bad guys, so he leans on her to get her to help him to catch some drug dealers. Also on Ramsey's fight card for this book is the exoneration of the lone black detective on his squad, Tillman. There's a crooked cop named Hefner who sets Tillman up to take a fall for something that he did. Tillman is arrested. Ramsey knows that the rest of his unit is racist as fuck, and he is on it to clear Tillman's name. Right off, this book gives off the mood of a mix between LA Confidential and The Untouchables. Obviously, Fred Ramsey, our lone white knight, is going to barrel through these bad fucking corrupt officers and save the day. But here's where this book gets complex. Ramsey is invited to a dinner over at the Tillman's apartment, which is in the ghetto. As he's pulling up, he's having some thoughts pop into his head. Some racism is creeping into his inner monologue, and he starts to argue with himself. And then at the dinner, Tillman's wife accidentally mixes their drinks up. Ramsey politely points this out. The look on her face says, typical. It seems some of his racism is creeping out, but hold on a second. I mean, if he was having dinner with his white friends and they mixed it up, wouldn't he say the same thing? I mean, he would, right? Right? It's not because they're black, right? So this puts him in a really bad mood. What does our hero do? He rolls over to Kitty's house to take out some of his aggression on her. He starts leaning on her harder to turn those dealers over to him. Much to his surprise, when he shows up, Kitty is trying to kick. She's trying to get clean. So now Kitty is on board. She's naming names. Ramsey, he's going undercover. All he wants to do is bust this dealer of Kitty's who he blames her entire addiction on. Plus, he knows that she had sex with him for drugs. And he's black. Wait. That doesn't matter. Even if he was a white drug dealer, he would want to crush him, right? It's not because he's a drug dealer, not because he's black. In Ramsey's desperation, he breaks his own moral code and bends the rules to make the case. More shade is thrown upon our hero's integrity. It's like Ramsey is walking through the field, stepping on every moral landmine possible. Everything he thought he was and stood for is crumbling. Tillman becomes his partner and starts giving him the yes'm treatment. Ramsey is frustrated with this, but he knows that it's all misunderstandings. He is not racist. Ramsey is now having constant meltdowns, like, fuck, why isn't this going my way? What is happening? But there's a little ray of sunshine. Kitty is now clean, his high school crush. He starts dating her. But in Ramsey's eyes, she's still a junkie. She's still a hooker. And he is disgusted by it. He's disgusted by her, and he's disgusted by himself. But he says he loves her. Or does he just love the idea of her from high school? Each snippet of drama and action sinks Ramsey further into the pit, but he feels like he's on the right path and morally perfect. But the world keeps telling him otherwise, until he realizes that he was a fake And this whole time he's been no better than those crooked cops from the beginning of the book. So this isn't just a run-of-the-mill, sleazy 70s crime novel with a clear and concise plot. This is the complete and utter psychological destruction of the main character. I can't help but wonder what the author was trying to say here, as his next book, The Golden Children, is about an interracial couple fighting bigotry in the 60s. So he was obviously against racism. Was he trying to say that there's evil inside of you and no matter what you do, it will come out? Is this like him admitting to the world that this is how he felt, even though he was preaching anti-racism? Is this saying that racism will always exist, no matter what you do or how you act? This is a book that I wish I had read with someone else, because I am at a complete loss what this book is trying to say. If you have read it, please tell me. Tell me what you think. So, is this a good book? Yes, it is. It's actually awesome. There's lots of crime in it too, and lots of police procedure stuff, and busting gang members and going undercover, and it's awesome. It's awesome in that aspect. There's lots of low-life junkie stuff, and it's gritty and gnarly, and all that shit is cool. And then there's the weird psychological destruction of this dude, which is also very enjoyable for some reason. So I don't know. It gets a thumb up. Sure, we're gonna thumb it up. Here's our little white thumb. I can't do it. Here's our white thumb up. No, he's a good guy. This is a non-racist thumb right here.
You're asking too much.
All right, last up. I don't know how much more tough you can take. Cosa Nostra by Peter McCurtin here, published by Belmont in 1971. Peter McCurtin was born in Ireland in 1929 and immigrated to the U.S. in his youth. He died in 1997. He also wrote under the names Bruno Rossi and Frank Capetta. His first published book was a sleaze novel published by Midwood called Anything Goes. He was hired on as an editor at Belmont Tower and Leisure. He had many series and contributed to other long-running series under their house name, and sometimes other authors would use his name as a house name. So it's questionable as to who exactly wrote what, but here's a list of some of the titles he had a hand in one way or another. He is responsible for the Western series Carmody, Peter McCurtin's Mafia and Crime Chronicles, the Assassin series, the Sharpshooter series under the very manly and Italian pseudonym Bruno Rossi, the Marksman, the first two as Peter McCurtin, and then continuing on as a street tough turned author Frank Scarpetta, Soldier of Fortune, which is a series about a mercenary, and the Western series Sundance. Alright, the basic premise here. Some mafia hoods show up in a small town in Maine. The local acting chief of police is not very pleased to see them. Some corrupt shenanigans seem to be at play. Will this former disgraced New York City officer join the mafia's payroll? A large black custom-built Cadillac rolls into Chapman's Corner, Maine. Disgraced former New York City detective Greeley spots it for what it is. That is obviously a mob car, obviously. The hoods have the audacity to pull right up to Greeley walking on the street. They roll down the window and they say, "Hey man, where's the chief?" And he says, "The chief has had a stroke and I'm the acting chief of police. Now I need you to get your hood ass out of my town." So right away, the book has a great opening. It's simple and lean, and it pulls you right in. Greeley is a tough-talking and thinking embittered anti-hero. Yeah, he took a payoff back in New York City, but he's here out in the sticks getting his life together. The writing is extremely hard-boiled and sarcastic, with plenty of self-deprecating remarks. It is also vulgar and very crass. And in fact, I would say it's a product of its time. But there is a scene where there is a gay character, and Greeley calls him the other F word, and then immediately justifies in using that terminology, saying that the word homosexual is too textbook. That is something that I've never run across in a book before. There's been many offensive things, many not cool things from the past that were just kind of accepted. But I've never had an author actually point out why he was being offensive. Now, is this the author coming through, or is this to show that Greeley is just that hard of a guy? Not enough? How about some more raunch on your 70s crime salad? Let me read you a little quote here. She smelled of kahula and candy and perfume. I don't know where she picked up on kahula. They don't sell it in the state liquor stores here. But she drinks it like a father fucker. And no doubt she stocks up in Boston when she goes there shopping for fresh cock and other things. Let's see, I got some milk. We got the milk, we got the cereal, fresh cock. Oh, and I needed some orange juice. On the crime side, the action is a little slow, but it's not boring. Here's where it resembles more of a hard-boiled PI novel instead of a balls-out crime book. The mob is trying to ease their way into Maine using money instead of muscle. They have corrupted members of the town, and Greeley spends most of the book uncovering the conspiracies. There's lots of manly posturing where Greeley will say stuff to the hoods like, if you're gonna eye fuck me, take me out to dinner first. There's some fisticuffs, there's some backroom deals, there's sleight of hand plot twists, typical in a classic hard-boiled private investigator novel. And at one point, our poor protagonist Greeley has to bang a hot lady to get some information. It's a tough and working class pulpy fantasy, and I loved every second of it. Keeping with our current theme of winter, it has a wonderful snowy atmosphere. They're in Maine. It's a different setting for a mob book, so that was enjoyable. And Peter McCurtin actually lived in Maine for a while, so he knows the location very well. The climax is unfortunately the weakest part of this book, but it didn't soil my enjoyment of getting there. That's where it lied. It was a fun mystery mixed with some mafia, crime, tough talk and stuff. It's so unpolitically correct. It is so crude and very 70s. So it gets a thumb up. What kind of thumb up do we get it? I don't even know. It's snowing on your thumb, and you're a mobster in a car paying people off. This is a hard thumb to do. Here we go. A thumb paying people off. Here, cop, take this money. No? Okay, whatever. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'm out of here.